So welcome everybody to our joint SAP and BPMD event. We are just waiting for some more people to join in, so we will start in 1 or 2 minutes. So I think we are nearly there. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. We will start in a few seconds. I still see some people are coming into the seminar. Very welcome, everybody. So I think we are 1 minute past 4 Swedish time or CET. So again, welcome to the seminar of today, where we will discuss the role of OpEx professional in enabling S4HANA transformation. And we all know that nowadays we are not talking about an upgrade or a new ERP system. We're really talking about the transformation. And we have here BPMD in partnership with Signavio and SAP. And for those who doesn't know, Signavio is fully acquired by SAP, and the brand name will slowly pass away here in 1st of January. So then you will find only SAP. Sam, if you take the next slide, please. So my name is Gustav Totti. I'm part of Signavio and SAP BPI in the Nordic region. I'm based in Stockholm. Happy to meet you all. I've been here for a couple of years and are then moving into SAP here from January 1st. Today with me, we have from BPMD, we have Peter Franz, who's the CEO of BPMD, and we have from SAP, from BPI, we have a colleague of mine called Vasilios, and Signavio, SAP BPI, we have Jean-Patrick, JP, a part of the event today. So yes, before we start, Sam, next slide, please. For today, Peter Franz will start off and explaining the role of OpEx professional and who BPMD really are. That's interesting to understand. Then we will have what is SAP Signavio, presented by JP. And then we will go through the Activate methodology, which is presented by Vasilios from SAP. And then we will have the pleasure of having Peter Franz again, closing and talking about the role of OpEx professional in S4 transformation. And hopefully we have time also to discuss the rapid process improvement. And then in the end, we will have a Q&A and a panel discussion. Before handing over to Peter, we have a quick poll that we would like to share and just have some answers from you. So I hope that is coming up. There you go. So which statement best describes your current scenario? I'm looking to implement S4HANA. I have implemented S4HANA already. I'm considering different option. If you could just spend a few seconds responding on that, and then we will share the data in the panel discussion. So just wait a few seconds and then we'll close. And Peter, are you ready? And maybe we can take the next slide, and Peter, you can introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks, Gustav, and great to join you all here today. I'm not going to spend a lot of time giving background to BPMD. BPMD is an organization that's narrow and deep, focused on helping organizations like yours implement a new way of doing process, a much more disciplined way that is linked to the dynamic digital environment that we live within. And we have a team that has worked very closely with Signavio to make that happen. Principally, our focus is helping OpEx professionals to do things in a different way compared to how they were operating in the past. And today we'll particularly focus on the S4 journey and say, well, is this just an IT issue, or is this something that really needs the OpEx community to get their weight behind? Now, clearly, I think it's the latter, because I think that it is more efficient, more effective, and ultimately a much better way of implementing a transformational journey. But that's something that I'll leave to you to decide at the end of the meeting today. My history is I've spent many years in implementing change, initially with one of the big consulting companies. And then for the last 10 years, we've been effectively running this within BPMD, myself and my co-founder, Dr. Matthias Kirchmer, who has worked in this space for many years as well. Okay, and please, I'll cover a number of things, but ultimately, if there are any questions, put them in the chat as well. We'll be monitoring the chat. So I think the fundamental question when you're about to implement S4 is, how are you going to go about this? Is this a simple taking your current environment and moving it into the new platform, so almost a lift and shift? Or is this something that can be significantly re-engineered as you do that? Our point of view is that when you have an ERP platform, the ERP platform, I think for the most part, you get to have a major re-implementation of an ERP perhaps once in 7 years. Our experience is it tends to drift to closer to 10 to 12 years. So once in 10 to 12 years, you have the opportunity to just rethink how you're executing the core of your operating environment, your enterprise resource environment as represented by your ERP tool. For a short period of time, you have that opportunity to unfreeze current bad practice, to re-engineer it, and then before it refreezes again when you get used to implementing the new system. And during that time, our point of view is that it's really important to take the opportunity to get back to basics and simplify your current world, utilizing the standard functions features as they are within the application environment. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And it's a chance where you can segment your processes. And I won't go through the detail of the segmentation model, but ultimately understanding those that are more strategic in nature, the top end of this graph, versus those that are more routine in nature, those that are uniform regardless of where they're executed, whereas those that require much more franchise variation. And by understanding where a process sits on this chart helps you identify the 20% that you really want to touch a lot, the last mile to the supply chain, the local customer management, your merchandising approach, portfolio, your product portfolio planning, your pricing strategy, the things that their customers perhaps care about, versus those that they expect you to have in place, but just want you to have routine and standard, be that routine and standard specific to a geography, or be that routine and standard overall. The nature of your implementation is going to change based on understanding where that difference is. I worked with a big utility company that went through a new ERP implementation, and they had somewhere around about 350 sort of transactional processes. And rather than take each one of those through sort of a conference room pilot in terms of understanding what needed to be done, we helped them identify the 80% that could just be using this standard functionality unless there's real reason to change that, versus the 20% where they could apply real innovation, making sure that their differentiation shone through. And we had this two-tier approach to implementation, which made quite a big difference. I'll talk that a little bit later on. But it's that context that I think is important in terms of the role of OpEx. And it's not just an IT project, but it is something that is an opportunity to rethink the way you are. And in that utilities example, they said it's a chance for us to get back to basics and to implement something that is efficient and structured. So I'll hand over to the SAP team now to talk through some of the elements of that approach of the modules, etc. And then I'll come back and just bring that together in terms of a method and approach as you might approach it.
Thank you so much, Peter. So this is JP, and if I may, thanks a lot for those who joined. Always a pleasure to work with BPMD. It's a long-time partner for Signavio, and now I'm very pleased that BPMD still a partner with the SAP Mother House. So thanks a lot for your trust. So just wanted to show you at very high level the mission, right, of BPI and how it fits into this transformation journey. So our main mission at BPI is really to provide a seamless transformation to continuous improvement. So see us as a business transformation engine, a business transformation platform, or even muscle, right? Because we need to train every day to get this going, right? So in other words, we can translate that by connecting the dots between actionable insight, KPI, recommendation, benchmark to action and improvement. And that's exactly what we are doing at BPI, providing to our end customers and partners core capabilities at any step of an end-to-end transformation. And my colleague Wasilio will be able to pinpoint in a minute. So if we can move to the next slide, how we make that happen, right, with the BPI offering. So for those who don't know Signavio, it's been 12 years that we are combining three main pillars, right? Business process management, process mining, and customer experience. Okay, so when you put all these key pillars into now the SAP BPI play, we offer different types of products. And hopefully that's going to resonate to you, especially into a context of a transformation. So we do, for 12 years, this concept of process management, right? So we have this ability to capture process, analyze, simulate your processes, compare with some best practices, and use one-stop shop to communicate these processes, because we want to break silos. We want to make sure that when we handle improvement or transformation at large, everybody is part of the game, right? Not only technical people, not only business people, all of the above, right? Something quite interesting with the offering is that while we are expert into the inside-out type of approach that starts with a process, we also cover the outside in, which means that we can start from the experience, the journey of our user, of our customer, of our partner, even our employees, and connect the dot with the underlying processes. And you're going to see that's something quite important, especially when we are driving a change. Now, let's be clear. If we want to apply transformation at scale, we need to take governance as a serious topic. Good news, right? Governance is something which is totally integrated with our suite, right? So it means that if you need some workflow to validate your content before you publish it, to run some assessment campaign every quarter to make sure that your process is still in line with your expectation, we got you covered. It's already into the platform. Now, there is something interesting, right? Especially where now I'm going to dive into the process mining side, right? Which is called process intelligence. Just before talking about this, I just want to step back a little bit. Is you don't apply process mining everywhere, right? So to know exactly where to apply process mining, that's where the SAP world come into play with process insights. And Wasilio is going to talk about that in a minute, but the concept here is really to have at your fingertips one way to take the pulse of your SAP ERP, whether it's ECC or S4, to exactly understand, based on the data, what's going on, right? Is there any smoke? Is there any room for improvement? And more than bringing some KPIs, we also bring you recommendation. We bring you the way to easily fix your issues. That's your starting point to know exactly where to use process mining. So now we start to have this full platform that helps you to detect where you've got issues, right? Drill down with process mining if needed, using the integrated inside out or outside in type of approach to drive your change, And obviously, along the way, if in this specific case we speak about an ECC to S4 transformation, you may want to tap into pre-built solution to help you, So it could be robotic process automation, it can be workflow, and that's where our process automation offering comes into play. So hopefully into these few minutes, you saw this lineage, this integration between insights, change management, and improvement. And obviously, this is meant to be continuous. So with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Wasilio for much more detail on the SAP world now.
Thank you very much, JP. And now please move to the next slide, which is now for the, okay. Basically now let us look into how we are doing such an S4 transformation project. And of course, there's many ways of doing this. I will show you now the SAP methodology, which is called SAP Activate, into which the BPI portfolio is fully integrated. And by the way, everything I will be talking about now is also available in the respective roadmap. And I think afterwards we will also share the links to this respectively. So basically what you would do is you go through various phases, which are discover, prepare, explore, realize, deploy, and run. And as I said before, here you see 6 phases. At the end of the day, maybe you work in 5 phases or 7 phases. This does not matter. What matters is that under it are various activities that anyway need to be done. And this is exactly the point. So we see by starting by identifying the value drivers and define the goals. What is it that you want to achieve? What is it that will actually generate the business value? Which problems are we trying to attack? And how should we attack them? What is out of SAP's portfolio the capabilities that will help you run your business better? Because at the end of the day, our strong recommendation is, and this is also what we heard at the very beginning, our strong recommendation is to use the technical change that happens in the system to drive business benefit and business value as well. So this is what the discover phase is about. And for this, we are providing you with various tool sets, including the so-called SAP Process Insights, which is a plug-and-play solution, which very easily helps you to understand where are the possible shortcomings in your processes, but as well gives you targeted recommendations on corrective actions and on the respective capabilities out of the SAP portfolio that helps you run better. Then you want to prepare your transformation. And here you want to be sure that you address the right things and that you understand where your starting process is, as well as understanding where you want to go. So let's start with the starting process, right? Imagine you say, I would like to understand the deviations that exist. I would like to understand whether the deviations from a standard process, whether they are justified or not. And I think this is one of the things that you always encounter in a project. Why are we working in such a way in one country and in another way in another country? Is it just for historical reasons, or are there very good business reasons for that? And in Explore, it's about what should the future look like? Do we just want to copy paste our old world from the old technology to the new technology, but basically everything stays the same? Hopefully not. Yeah. Do we want to go to the best practices? Yes, this would be fantastic. But what does it mean to get from the today's world to the new world? What does it mean to get from today's processes to the new processes? Can we please compare and simulate what that is? And then in the realization, when I start building this in my technology, so basically going from modeling the processes on the business level, and discussing the processes, the new processes on the business level with the various stakeholders who will be impacted by the change, going from this business level description to the technical one. basically handing it over into the technical implementation and making sure that what gets implemented in the system corresponds to what was discussed in terms of business. And then you get into the deployment phase, governing the rollout. People will work in a different way afterwards. They need to be convinced. They need to be trained. You need to be following up on who has already adjusted and who not. Where has it been rolled out and where not? And Signavio is not a project management tool or a program management tool, not at all. But Signavio helps you in, exactly as the word says here, governing the rollout and making sure that the new processes actually get followed, provides you with the visibility on, are people actually adopting or maybe not yet? And as we said also before, it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with a cut over weekend and yeah, we're good for the next 10 years. It's neither a sprint nor a marathon because it's endless. It is a continuous improvement loop. And this is where you get the tools to monitor your operational performance and continuously improve, as well also as monitoring the experience of your customers, your employees, and your suppliers, and the underlying operational layer. So this is basically the whole thing. And as I said before, it doesn't matter whether it's 6 phases, 3 phases, 23 phases. It's different activities that we believe need to be done anyway in the context of your transformation. And for all these phases, you get the respective tool set, but also the instructions and the recommendations on how to do. Let's move to the next one. Thank you very much. Yeah. So in terms of tools that are used or which parts of the SAP Signavio portfolio are used, let us briefly look into discovery. And I know it's very, very hard to read, but I will walk you through this. Yeah. You basically have the process insights, which is a plug and play solution for those processes that run through an SAP ECC system. And by the way, later on also that run through an S4HANA system. So this is literally plug and play. You connect it. A few seconds later, the data starts flowing. You get the first process flows. You get the first process performance indicators. The more complex ones take a few hours, but basically within 24 hours, you have a visibility on your entire company. This, or again, the processes that run through the S4HANA system. This is covering 8 lines of business: asset management, finance, manufacturing, R&D, engineering, sales, service, sourcing and procurement, and supply chain. And 6 end-to-end processes: lead to cash, source to pay, plan to fulfill, etc., including also about 40 sub-processes and roughly 100 process performance indicators, including the improvement recommendations, including recommendations for SAP functionality. Out of the box, plug and play. However, there are areas which are processes which are not running through an SAP system, or there are areas where you want to understand not only are the processes running good or bad, but how exactly they are running. For these 2 cases, understand how they are running, and for the case of what happens with processes who are running through non-SAP systems, there is the SAP Signavio Process Intelligence, which you see on the bottom left corner. This is the process mining tool. And then you have the Process Manager, which is this beautiful process modeling tool, which allows you to model your as-is processes in collaboration with your users. And there are process modeling tools out in the market and have been for a long time. The strength of Signavio is the easy to use and the inclusion, the collaboration with the business people, not only the experts. Then you go into preparing, yeah, and here again, smooth transition, yeah, understand the variations, understand the deviations, and have a meaningful discussion, explore, have a meaningful discussion about what is it that you want to change, and make conscious decisions about why you change things or why you don't change things. By the way, in here, we are also giving you the possibility to upload the SAP best practices into the process manager and then compare your current process with the best practice. And I said before, make conscious decisions about what you change or what you don't change. This is also the moment when you start working on process automation. There may be some parts of the process which you want to automate, not by using SAP standard functionality, maybe it doesn't exist for your case, yeah, but by using workflows, process automation, robotic process automation, low code, no code. So this is exactly where you would start working on it. Then we come to the realize phase. Again, the journey modeler, and which allows you to model actually not only your operational processes, but the experience that your customers, employees, or suppliers are having with you and what the respective operational processes are, as well as, and this is where this collaboration hub comes in, yeah, as well as very, very early involving the people in your organization who will be impacted by these new processes, yeah? Giving them a voice, giving them the possibility to contribute. By doing this, you lower the resistance, yeah, to change, and you secure and accelerate the project itself. Because in the deployment phase, when it is about really deploying these new processes, you will have already anticipated the problems, the challenges, the questions, the objections that people may have had. And as I said before, it doesn't stop there. It's in the running where the real value is to continuously review the processes, process insights, continuously updated data, process intelligence, continuously updated data, but also collaboration hub, as said before, give the people who are working with the processes the voice to raise their objections, to raise their observations, to raise their concerns, and all these automation tools, as well as all the SAP functionality that you may want to deploy. So this was a little bit a fast track through the overall approach. Now, this looks nice on slide, but I would like to hand over back to BPMD in order to have a better understanding of how exactly this is to be done in order to guarantee success. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Vasilios, and excellent introduction to the approach and to the tool set. Now, and I think the role of the OpEx professional, so looking at this sort of outside in rather than capability out, is what I'd like to address a little bit more now. And I think they support each other incredibly well, and we are really excited about the BPI approach. So if you go to the next slide, I think we have continually focused on what we've referred to as the need for rapid process improvement. And regardless of where you are in terms of any intervention, be that a significant intervention like the implementation of the new ERP, S4 in this case, or be that later down the path where you're simply making corrective or continuous improvement actions in any particular area. Linking back to my points right up front, at the core, the methodology, nobody can fault. We're going to analyze our as is, we're going to define some of the improvement actions, create it to be, and roll out an execution plan. And that's a very useful engine. And I think what you've heard Vasilio describe is many of the approaches that can support that traditionally in the form of providing a more data-rich, data-centric support for making the decisions around those processes. What is really important is to start this up front with a clear understanding of your top-down business goals and which processes you would like to touch. We always say, start with those that are the high limbs, high impact, low maturity processes, where are the areas that are really crucial to your business, and which are the ones that you perhaps are not performing as best as they could at the moment. Now, that is informed in a number of ways, but the insights capability, the module as part of the Discover that Vasilios describes, provides an immense amount of data bottom up to support those decisions. Now, you still need to contextualize it. I think Vasilios explained how it gives you, within 24 hours, some great data in terms of where you can drive improvement, what parts of the business you can drive improvement in, insofar as they are supported by SAP. Well, yes, but you might have hundreds of these. The question is where to start. And so it's important to match that sort of bottom-up good insight with the top-down approach, which is, where do I, from a business perspective, believe that my highest impact business areas are right now, and the ones that I want to put my emphasis behind. So that's the first part of this that is quite important. As part of the as-is analysis, I think there are multiple ways of doing that discovery. Ideally, you are extracting the information using the existing process information, etc. Inevitably, as part of as-is, most organizations end up doing a large amount of interviewing and discussing context around the processes. And you want to underpin that with process mining data and the insights that you got earlier to say, well, how is it actually happening? So what process mining tells you is this is exactly how it operates with this group of buying clerks in this environment, for this type of product. And you're able to get very specific around the as-is. Whereas if you simply do interviews, you end up getting what they think you want to hear. So matching that sort of people-centric context with the data-centric approach that you get from the SAP BPI environment is very, very powerful. And it's that combination that gives you a good focus on what the as-is looks like. So you focused on which processes you want to touch on first, which ones you want to have the highest impact on. And within those, you delve into what does the BPI tool set tell me in terms of things I can do differently, reinforced by trying to understand root cause and issue from your interviews, which ultimately tells you where your potential root cause and improvements are. You're then going to model those improvements within the Signavio environment, and that's, I think, pretty much as has been described here. What is really powerful, and Vasilios touched on that, is being able to utilize the capability around collaboration to make that analysis and that creation of the to-be something that is our solution, as opposed to my and the project team solution. Too often I've seen analysis around a process done by some clever individuals in a project team, and then it disappears into their machine or into a black box somewhere, never to be seen again. Whereas by engaging the user community using the collaboration tool set, they do a brainstorming session around, okay, we've got these problems and these are, BPI has shown us where there might be improvements. What if we change the process this way? And we all agree it, and it then it's there, available in the collaboration environment. And we can all see it tomorrow when we go. We don't have to say, Joe, please send us the outcome of the meeting yesterday. No, it's there in the collaboration environment. And you can then use that and some of the other tool sets, which are like the simulation tool sets, etc., to map out how that might be better, to end up with a real focused approach as to where you want to implement change. And then you can roll that out in terms of the rollout. And as part of the deploy and part of the continual improvement that follows that, as Vasilios described, the tool supports that as well. So using this sort of top-down approach to understanding the end-to-end process it really makes a big difference. OpEx and OpEx professionals play a key part in that. Not singularly, it's got to be done in very close collaboration. You know, when people say, should this be IT-centric or people-centric, I say, we've invented those barriers. Ultimately, you want a good understanding of the business, a good understanding of IT, and you want a joint team that continually focuses on getting that context-centric and data-centric approach combined throughout this. And I think that's exciting. So it's an approach we've always supported and continue to support. I think the Signavio toolset was very good at helping you down that direction. The additional functionality that's brought to bear through the BPI modules is incredibly exciting. And we can't wait for the further developments that I have no doubt the SAP engine will produce in this space. I hand back to you, Gustav.
Great. So thank you, Peter. And I think we'll start the panel discussion. I'm not sure, Anton, do we have the results from the poll we had from the beginning? We do. Okay. So half of you said that you are actually looking to implement S4HANA. So and 30% have already done so. And I think a question then, Peter, if you have already done this, is the things we are discussing today, is that irrelevant for them, or should they still listen? What do you think?
The approach that we described today is relevant regardless where you are in the journey. I think if you are about to embark on a significant transformation, think process. Not think process as an overhead, think process as something that guides and focuses you on achieving the most relevant business results. However, if you've already implemented S4, well done, you've been one of the early adopters and you've got there. It is now a superb opportunity for you to utilize the tool set you've got to continually grow, develop, and drive improvement. And the approach I've described, whether you apply that in one end-to-end process. I mean, we've got organizations that have simply said, okay, we've implemented the technology, yay. Now let's focus on procure to pay. We've got to make sure that we get this whole responsiveness with regards procure to pay working better for us and more efficiently and more timely. Then we're focusing on that area. We identify where the high impact, low maturity areas are. We get the insights from the tool set. We do some process mining to see how it's actually executed at the moment and focus on the improvements in that area. And the approach is as relevant in that area as it is to the start of a transformation. Sorry, long answer to a simple question, but I hope
I think it's great, Peter. Vasilius, did you want to add anything?
If I may to second to this, right? So we see customers who use their S4HANA transformation as an opportunity to do their business transformation as well. So exactly as Peter had described it at the very beginning as the quote unquote right thing to do. But we also have customers where the project is predominantly IT driven and where they say, let us get onto the new platform first, and then we see where we can start improving. And I've been with the CFO recently who said, Vasilius, we spent 8 million euros for this S4 transformation. And for me, it looks the same like before. Yeah. So from my perspective, zero business value. And then the CFO said, yes, now at the moment to start. Yeah. So and these cases are there as well. And I can only second what Peter said. Use the opportunity to understand where you can do better, where you can run better, where you can be more resilient, more agile, etc., with the technology that was given to you. Yeah, and it will never stop. It will never stop. It's not, Peter, as you just said, oh, we made it. Thank God. Yeah, this is actually where you get into this infinity loop, infinity cycle of continuously improving, continuously making better, continuously adjusted. Yeah.
But reinforcing that point, Vasilius, and I think you're absolutely right. I think the implementation of a new platform environment. So the rollout of S4, affecting business change is hard to do. And when people have to get used to a new ERP completely, they are forced to change what they're doing. And in my words, you unfreeze the organization. And you have that opportunity once in a long while. And the argument that is often thrown at me is, yes, but why do I want to put this overhead up front of process analysis? It just adds cost and complexity to my program. It doesn't. And we've shown this over and over again. For a number of reasons. Yes, it does take a bit of time to analyze process and agree where your high impact, low maturity areas are, your most significant strategic processes versus those that are more routine. But that provides a guiding light that says, well, this 80%, we are going to take through what is out of the box. We're implementing it because we don't need to be industry leading in this area. We can be, follow the standard. And if we can apply a one approach to that, which is it's adopt. And by the way, if the local individual who does supply chain in Outer Mongolia says, I want to do it differently because we do it differently, you say, no. We've agreed that process we're going to do as a standard. Versus other areas where you then put more effort into the change and get greater value from it. So properly structured, overall, the program takes you less time and you deliver greater value from it rather than being an overhead. So it takes a bit of getting your head around, and you've got to get the approach structured such the way that you actually deliver that and the governance to support it. But in principle, it's incredibly powerful if you do that right. Yes, I've seen, the utility example I described, I created an almost open battle between the CFO and the CIO, right? And the CIO just said, let me get on with my job and implement the new technology. And the CFO said, no, this is an opportunity for me to simplify and get back to basics on my finance processes. And there was a tussle. Ultimately, they came to a compromise, and I think the CFO process approach won, and it yielded great results. Sorry, I've answered a lot, but I get quite passionate about that.
Yeah.
It gets into a question that Andy posted in the chat, Andy Settelberger. Thank you very much for this, which is about how do we actually get this done, right? How do we get the perception? How do we transport the need for change? Yeah. And here my answer would be the following. Number one is, and you're right at Andy, the huge distraction was always the technology, including now the sophisticated, but overwhelming BPM tools. Agreed. Yeah. And for me, it starts with transparency. It starts with data. Yeah. It starts with the point where you can go to, for example, the guy from the supply chain in Outer Mongolia, and say, everybody in all the other warehouses that we have in the world, performance is X. Actually, the best warehouse we have in the world is 30% more performant than the average warehouses. And in theory, they should all be doing the same. Let us try to understand what the guys in the super performant warehouse are doing, and let us then copy the same thing for all the other warehouses. And from a product perspective, you start with process insights because it gives you very, very easily, quickly, the understanding of what is the performance of every single warehouse, every single sales region, every single factory, etc. And then the process modeling or the process mining, aka SAP Signavio Process Intelligence, which explains how they are working. And this is the weapon that you get in your hand in order to get the business involved and the CFO, and tell them, here you are lacking, you're losing revenue, you're losing profitability because not everybody in your organization is working according to the best practice. Secondly, if I may, yeah, the beauty of this thing is that it also gives you the possibility to question maybe custom development that you have had in the past, right? So maybe you were forced 10 years ago to develop something because functionality was not available. Is it really still needed? Or can we maybe go to standard? Exactly as Peter said, some of your processes may not be differentiating. Yeah? And here, your job is to make them as slim and as effective as possible. Yeah. Others are your core business. This is what differentiates you. Yeah. But for the standard ones, go back to standard, so to say. Yeah. I hope this answered it.
Yeah. Thanks, Vasilos. JP, I think we have a question here. I see in the chat that there are multiple questions about Solution Manager, which is an SAP application. Mm-hmm. And could you put some context on what sort of the integration points are and how these two applications works together, maybe?
Yeah, so I can certainly jump in here. So thanks for the question. So two things. I would like to start because I saw also some questions that are related with best practices. So today, as you know, we've got a central website where we've got all the best practices, and you can pick and choose them according to the type of systems, the line of business, the processes, etc. And you can really decide either you want a big package and take all the processes for one specific process area, or just one tiny, activity. So you can really pick and choose and import that into Signavio. That's very seamless, right? And just for those who have been facing this, when you import the best practices, when they come straight from SAP, you've got a vertical representation. If you prefer an horizontal, you can even change that to fit with the way you are capturing your processes. So now to Solution Manager point, what I like to say is that we have not waited for the acquisition to get the integration with Solman. It's been years and years that we are doing ERP transformation. So we are very pleased to have a bi-directional integration with Solution Manager. So I like to call the concept of end-to-end traceability, where everything starts with the value drivers, right? Where we want to go, that go from capabilities, process, requirements. So everything is actually at this point stored into Signavio that you use to socialize, to collaborate, to validate, etc. And as soon as you are comfortable with what you want to ship, right? That's where you actually press the button to push these process steps and documentation to Solution Manager. So with that, you've got an end-to-end traceability that goes even beyond, right? So the business requirement side, you are pushing that to the engine where the IT people can take over, do their testing, their run, their monitoring. And the beauty of it is that it's not only one way, that's both ways. So it means that you can even retrieve the executable, right? The code, the executable from Solution Manager back to Signavio. So now we've got, let's say, a unique identifier. We've got an object which is bridging the gap between IT community, I would say, and business community. And we can finally connect these two silos, original silos, together to work on better value realization, right? So this bi-directional connector is there for years, and obviously, as you can imagine, we're gonna keep developing it more and more over the next few months.
Great.
Maybe if I can add to that, JP, I think ultimately the capability is there. The capability to create that linkage between what's in Process Manager and what's in the Solution Manager Solman environment. The decision that you need to make as an OpEx professional is where do you want the knowledge content to be, and where do you want the linkage points to be. And with some, you may want more to be in the Signavio kind of Process Manager environment, and some you might want more to be in Solman, but you want the two to link up, and that might be different process to process and by area. So what we guide you through is utilizing that structure to one, figure out where best to store the information and how best to make sure that you've got the governance to keep the two properly in line.
Very good point.
Mm. Peter, in many clients, you might come into a situation where nothing is really documented other than in Excel, PowerPoint, or other systems. How do you help clients to sort of define the as-is in a sort of fast way and not being too overwhelming maybe, and then going to be process, so to speak? What's the approach there, Peter?
Yeah, well, whatever process models you end up creating, it's always a question of what level of information do you want, and what are you going to use it for? Who's going to use it? What are you going to use it for? I think that discovery process, there are multiple ways of doing it. Firstly, most organizations, even though they say to me, we don't have any process information, what they might mean is I don't have any process flows, process diagrams. There are others that maybe have Visio, but typically most processes in an organization are available in some form, either as an SAP document, or as a checklist, or as a quality checklist, or as a training document, or as a Visio diagram, or a series of Visio diagrams, or I mean, I have seen boatloads of ways that is captured. Ultimately, you want one source of the truth. You want it implemented in one way. And there are multiple techniques to do that. If you do use raw discovery as one of the techniques, do it at a level of detail that is sufficient in terms of where you are in the journey. We worked with an organization that was implementing actually the previous version of SAP. They weren't ready to implement S4 yet. And we basically, over a period of 3 months, they created a top-down view of all of their processes using very basic discovery workshops, right? And we guided them in terms of the level of detail they went to. And then they used that to build on during the process. And of course, process mining of your existing world can also be used to retrofit what the process looks like. Now, that will only be the technology part of the process. So multiple ways of doing it, but keep it to a level of detail that makes sense given where you are on the journey, and then add to it as part of your transformation program.
Thanks. And JP, you had something to add to that?
Just maybe to wrap up and clarify one point here for those who are BPM oriented here. So anything that you have in terms of existing documentation, Visio, Excel, PowerPoint, even competitive solution, as long as they are using standard notation, we can import that, right? So that's the first thing. We can use our quick model, which is what I call the go-to partner tool, right? Because when you go to workshops, it's Excel-like. You just have to type the name of the process. That's going to build your BPMN diagram live. Believe me, that's a game changer when you are leading your workshops. Obviously, using the traditional process modeling tool, right? And Peter pointed something very important, and I just want to make sure it's clear for everybody. Within the process mining capability, we've got the discovery. Okay, so that everybody understands this concept. We use the data to retrieve the information and how the process is working. But there is something which is quite unique within our BPI offering is beyond discovering the end-to-end process, we actually have a feature that can help you to translate this discovery from the data into a fully actionable BPMN diagram. So when I've got an end customer or a partner telling me the documentation that we have is no longer up to date, we don't have anything, say, no drama, no problem, right? We can actually apply process mining to get the visibility and translate this discovery into a BPMN diagram that we're going to use to simulate, to make some comparison, etc. This one is extremely helpful, especially to fast track the first step of the analysis. And once again, thanks a lot, Peter, for mentioning it, because it's a key capability.
Yeah, it's a great capability. I mean, ultimately, it gives you the parts of the process that are currently supported by technology. And so it doesn't necessarily give you the whole process as you need it, but it is an immensely good starting point. Yeah.
Without the need to involve hundreds of square meters of brown paper and dozens of people drawing things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You like saving the trees, Vasily.
Indeed. Indeed, yes.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Peter, I mean, when you have the companies with transformation, we touch based on the CIO, CFO. We have strong belief from the Synovis side that you should share the process excellence to the wider community. And in that, it's very important to have an exec sponsor. How do you go about really find an exec sponsor and motivate that person to be that? Do you have an example?
I wish I had a simple answer to that question. Ultimately, what I always describe is that finding a sponsor in the business is key. And even if that is only part of the business in one of the areas, I think it's key. And then working very closely with them to champion the way forward. Ultimately, what you're looking for is, where is the program going to get the most business oxygen? That's what you're looking for. And that's ultimately where you want to start, or at least start your transformation journey. Maybe you don't choose to do a big bang, we're going to do everything. And maybe we start in wherever it is. Finance typically is a good starting point. And do we have the CFO on board? And does the CFO champion this? But it's not necessarily the CFO. It could be any number of other areas, right? And we've seen that as well.
That's great. And how do you sort of convince people that are maybe skeptical or doesn't have the full insight to a sort of a process transformation platform? I mean, it's been good with Visio or Excel before. Why not just continue with that again? What discussion points do we usually see then?
Well, so Visio is a very good tool, and it's one that is available on a lot of people's desktops as part of the Microsoft platform, right? So it's easy to get into, is the bottom line. However, the processes that are created tend to be localized, and they do not have that third dimension, that connectivity. And maintenance of them over time, and trying to create a corporate asset related to them of how we run the business, what our business looks like, is very, very difficult. And beyond the initial requirements that are used to capture the requirements for your transformation journey, you can use Visio quite effectively to do that, but it's lost. As soon as you start getting down the journey and you want to add more information around the way the process is actually going to work, the systems, the roles, how we execute it, the KPIs, et cetera, and you want to link those to the raw process, it's very, very difficult to do. So our recommendation is always start small using the process management environment, model it in the repository, and grow it within that environment, and grow the sophistication in which how you use it as your transformation journey progresses. It would be a better way of making it happen. But we would always recommend to bite the bullet and go for that repository-driven approach earlier rather than later, because you will get greater midterm value out of that investment.
If I may, I would suggest, keep in mind, an S4HANA transformation is always also the opportunity to transform your business. And not only small one, but really, if necessary, end-to-end. You need to have business sponsorship, and here it's helpful to have, let's say, the one gentleman or lady who benefits most, who can drive. And really, with SAP Signavio, you have the tool set to do something in a user-friendly way, in a fast way, in a comprehensive way, in order to increase the resilience and the agility of your company. And I think this, Peter, may I give you the last word? We are at the end of our time, but I think this hopefully captures it well.
Thank you. And thank you for Peter, JP, and Vasilios for the presentation today. I think, Anton, we have a last, so not pool, but we have some questions at least. If you would like to have contact with us, I think we have that coming up anytime. There you go. So if you would like to have contact with us, you can just say yes or no. We'll make contact, or of course you can go to LinkedIn or whatever. Thanks for spending the time with us. We do hope to engage again in the future. And thanks again, JP, Peter, and Vasilius for presenting. I learned a lot, and it was nice. And have a nice evening, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All questions. Thank you. Bye.
Let's see.